Hey, Uncle Mark.
Uh-huh.
I think that you're bad, and you think that I'm bad.
You know what? You don't have to be a total Nazi about this.
Damn it! You went first. I was going to dive in with that. Oh, I thought
there's laws about these things.
There are laws, yeah.
Or there ought to be a law.
There ought. Maybe that's what we should call this segment. There ought to be a law.
There ought to be a law, and we'll just yell at the kids with their hippity hop pants around their butts.
Get off of our lawn.
Or we'll just goose step them off the lawn. So to talk about the law that there ought to be, we've brought in our friend, resident expert on smart stuff, Professor Jim.
Gentlemen.
Hey, how's it going, Jim?
Doing well.
Good. Jim, our resident philosophy professor, we bring you in to help us stay away from some of the more egregious logical fallacies of the world.
On the cognitive straight and narrow.
There you go.
Yes.
I like it. So what are we going to be cognating today?
Well, you guys already started it just wonderfully. This might come as a bit of a shock, but according to my sources, these are my online sources, we are surrounded by Nazis. It's not just the two of you, actually. They're everywhere.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so I just, for instance, there is a state representative in Kansas who has gone on record saying that Planned Parenthood are Nazis.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
That's an easy one. There is a councilwoman in New Jersey who's made it very clear that Democrats are Nazis.
Oh, all of them?
All of them.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Fair enough.
This was, on Facebook.
Yeah.
You might remember the former presidential candidate, Howard Dean.
Yeah!
Yes, that's the one. He's now made it very clear Trump supporters are Nazis.
Okay. Good. Excellent.
And I've also heard from one other source, Republicans are Nazis.
Okay. So is there anyone we haven't covered in these United States?
No, I think it's basically we're all Nazis.
Okay.
And that's the problem, right? This is
right.
This is the world that we live in that generates something that's been called Godwin's law.
Oh.
And so this was an observation that a guy named Mike Godwin made in 1990. And the law is this: the longer a discussion proceeds, particularly in the domain of online discussions, the chances that someone will invoke Nazis or Hitler goes to 1, goes to certainty.
Okay.
So it's essentially, as time goes on, it's inevitable someone is going to invoke Hitler or the Nazis.
Right.
And you can play games with this, right? Some people have said that the first person in the argument to invoke Hitler or the Nazis loses.
Yeah, I've heard it said that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That basically you have to give up your side of the argument.
You've hit bottom
if that's where you go.
Yeah. Because I think the gist of it is, right, the whole idea of you lose when you do that is, once you're saying that, typically what you're embodying there is just this idea of Nazis have come to represent pure evil, and all you've got left is you're pure evil.
Right.
Right.
And it's such a weird dodge too. It's because it's this way of like not making your argument. Mm-hmm. Like you, for instance, Jim, I know that you're a fellow that doesn't eat meat in general. You know who else didn't eat meat? Adolf Hitler. So
I got that going for me.
You're obviously evil.
Yeah.
You're obviously you hate Jews.
Yeah.
Is what that is.
Well, and what you're picking up on, Dan, I think is something important. That is, one of the things that it's important to remember, before Nazis were Nazis, they were just regular people, with hopes and dreams and ambitions and loves and hates like everybody else. It only ended at the Holocaust at the end.
Right.
And along the way, they were just normal people. And so as a result, it's very easy to, you can basically find anything represented among the population of, Nazi Germany and its affiliates and say you're a Nazi.
Right.
And there's a lot of harm to that. I mean, I think one of the things, there's something, that we were talking earlier just about you're sort of giving up on the argument when all you can say is, you're a Nazi. But it does a real, it's disrespectful to people who, were actually victims of what happened at that time.
Oh, thank God you didn't say it's disrespectful to Nazis.
No.
That would have been bad.
Nazis, I think, are the only people anymore that do not get called Nazis.
Well, isn't that there was just a rally in, where was it?
Georgia.
In Georgia,
Yes.
where a swastika was
Being
lit
burnt.
up and
That's right.
all sorts of stuff. And so there are in the world Nazis.
That's right. And I think, what's important about this, and it's what in some sense makes this difficult, you don't want to say, on the one hand, you want to say, don't just invoke Nazis every time you disagree with someone.
Right.
On the other hand, you don't want to say it's never okay to invoke Nazis, right? Because it, to the extent that you want to draw on history and awful things that have happened in the past to inform how we go about what we're doing in the present, that's a helpful case study to keep in mind. And so the challenge is, how do you do that in a way, right, that is responsible and respectful, without it turning into just a kind of rhetorical, knee-jerk reaction.
Right. Well, and that's the part of the problem with using Nazism or using Hitler in just whatever any old argument that you want. You won't let me have this shopping cart. You're a shopping cart Nazi or whatever.
Right.
Is that when it comes time, when we actually do need to invoke Nazism, when we need to say, no, these are the tactics of Nazi Germany.
Yeah. The word is devoid of any actual substance.
And people are saying, are calling Godwin's law on you when you're like,
right.
No, this is very important stuff we need to be talking about right now.
Right. So I do. If there's sort of one lesson here, it is, I think there are certain cases where it can be very useful to draw on history, whether it's, the Holocaust or genocides or slavery. It can be useful to draw on, the history of human atrocities, but it takes a lot of care and time to flesh that out in a useful way. Because what you need to do, right, is sort of describe the process that generates the awful conclusion, and then look to present events and say, look, I see a similar process playing here, right? That takes space. You're not going to pull that off in 140 characters. You're not going to reasonably pull it off in a Facebook post. And so,
point of order, it's 280 characters now.
Oh, well,
so I think
maybe
there is an opportunity for clarification in there.
You're going to have to use a lot of emojis in there.
Yes.
So
where is the swastika emoji? I've looked for it. I can't find it.
So my advice is, if you're ever online, mind Godwin's law, because it's unlikely that you're gonna be able to deploy that point in both a respectful way and in a reasonable, convincing way. If you're interested in writing an op-ed or talking with someone about history and how past history bears on the present, that could play out over a conversation, but it takes time and it takes space and it takes a level head.
Well, it is kind of an unfortunate, I guess, shitty reality, because the 20th century, mid 20th century totalitarianism and the struggle against it are kind of the defining issues of the 20th century, right? And
Sure.
It's still everything that rippled out from there still affects our politics and our society and our culture and everything. So to have to tie that hand behind your back, when you're coming at it from an honest direction of the historical meanings, or what were the cause and effect of those politics, its cultural movements, is kind of horrible, because someone can then just say, well, Godwin's law, you mentioned
you can't go there.
The Night of the Long Knives in a historical context, therefore Godwin's law, you lose. Right?
Yeah.
So why are you even telling us about this, Jim?
Well, I don't want your listeners to fall prey to, being the ones who go there. It's the kind of thing that happens all too often. I think it happens most of the time online in social, media sites, and it's much. You're going to get a lot more traction if you sort of try to talk about the substance of the issue that you are disagreeing about, rather than trying to characterize the person that you disagree with as a Nazi.
Well, and I think that's and you can turn that the other way too. You can, if someone else calls your argument Nazism, or calls you a Nazi or whatever, it can be wise to ask them to return to the substance of the thing.
Right. What is it that you disagree with?
Right. Oh, how am I a Nazi?
Yeah.
Let's start with that.
Mm-hmm. So I think Jim, if I'm interpreting this correctly, I think what you're telling people is avoid the Hitler thing and just use Pol Pot instead. Is that right?
You're on much safer ground, with other mass
that's
killings.
Just manners.
Or go to Huns. To call somebody a Hun. It's a perfect.
Oh, old school.
Yeah,
old
sure.
School. That's nice. The best racism is old timey racism.
You're so Han Dynasty with that.
All right. Well, I think we've exhausted this.
All right.
Let's move on.
Thanks, Jim.
Toodles.